Hello my dudes and welcome back to another AskReddit video. If you are new here, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of our videos posted daily. With that out of the way, let's get into it. Who's the most famous person you've talked to for more than 30 seconds? Dave Chappelle. I was working night audit at a mid-luxury hotel in Napa. He and 6 or 7 friends rode up on motorcycles at like 2 a.m. and asked to get rooms for 2 nights. Apparently, they were in a road trip to nowhere and would just stop each night where they stopped. They had a few people following them in a truck and trailer. He is a pretty legit insomniac, and would sit in the front steps for 5 or 6 hours each night on his phone smoking. They decided to extend and ended up staying a total of 6 nights. On night 2, I went out and asked for a light and we ended up chatting for a few hours. It repeated for 3 nights and I got to hang out with him about 10 hours total. Smart, thoughtful, articulate, and genuine person. The humor is just him. I was actually blown away with how precise his natural wit and timing was. Saw him at a show in San Francisco last year and he recognized me. Shouted out from stage, "Yo, I know you, you still working nights?" Great human. Jim Carrey and Robin Williams. They visited the St. Jude Children's Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee. They both were incredibly nice and hilarious. This small kid fell into the floor, and was crying and kicking his legs, so Jim Carrey, in a very expensive suit, dropped to the floor and did the same just to stop him from crying. Robin Williams wore the nose from Patch Adams, and much more hairy than he looked in the movies. Steve Irwin in an elevator when I was 11. He asked me where I was from, and if there was any crocodiles in the pool, and I told him I went to his zoo and how cool it was. He was exactly how you think he'd be, just a really nice guy and a great dude. I also stood next to Usain Bolt for a while at the airport. I hadn't slept for over 24 hours, and smelled like crap, but he was still happy to take a photo with me before we went our separate ways. Sigourney Weaver. Just after Aliens was released on VHS, a buddy of mine and I were riding up the gondola at the mountain where we were on a ski team. She was in the singles line, and we didn't know who she was until the end of the ride up, around 10 minutes, when she said something, and he and I, both being about 12, so we had both obviously seen Aliens, as good children of the 80s, were both like, "Ripley?" She was kind enough to repeat, "Get away from her, you bitch," for us. Samuel L. Jackson. Even got to end the conversation on him calling me a mother effer. I put that crap on my resume. Was in an IHOP at like 2 a.m. went to check out and the cashier was all smiles, and anxiously said, "There's a celebrity behind you." Rolled my eyes and figured it was gonna be someone like Jimmy Fallon or Joe Rogan. Turn around, and there in all his glory is Samuel L. Jackson. In a pink plaid golf outfit. Hat and all. His friend was in the same but it was baby blue. I was legit starstruck, mouth agape. SLJ proceeds to channel some Jules Winfield on me and my friend. "Damn. You two acting like I held you up at gunpoint or some crap. Tell me, do I intimidate you?" Without missing a beat, and the only time I'll ever think of anything remotely this witty, I tell him, "We're not intimidated by anyone that can get their ass kicked by Eddie Murphy in Arsenio Hall with a mop handle." SLJ is caught flat-footed for a split second, and starts laughing his ass off. We get to chill with him for a bit and chat him up. When he says he's gotta bounce, I ask for a favor. "Now, I don't do autographs," he starts. "Ain't no one gonna believe me with some napkin or something anyways. Could you call me your mother effer?" He laughs uproariously and stone faces mid-laugh. Freon 424, "You're a mother effer." I'm a 6'3" dude and I melted on the spot, shivers running up my spine. Buzz Aldrin. Just my family and I got to spend a few days with him touring around the Kennedy Space Center. I was 12, and had no idea what to ask him. So all I could think of was, "Were you scared during launch? And what does the moon ground feel like?" I got back in contact with him a few years back when I called to notify him that my dad had passed away. He said that he remembered my father, and was proud that I followed in his footsteps by majoring in aerospace engineering for my bachelor's. Jason Momoa. He was lost as heck in Atlanta, Dragon Con, whoop whoop, and I happened to be walking by as he was turning in place trying to get his bearings. I was going to the same building, so I offered to walk him over. People assumed I was his handler, and just left us along. We had small talk the whole way, and I was being super chill. Not fangirling or anything. When we get where we're going, he thanks me and says, "I'm Jason by the way." I say it's nice to meet him, and we shake hands before parting. That dude is cool as hell. When Iron Man was filming, I was working for the Department of Air Force's law enforcement. I was in charge of verifying all the people working on the production. I was given a 23-page list of every name with Iron Man poster as a cover page. I had a Lincoln Town car pull up, and handed a stack of driver's licenses. I checked them and noticed a Downey wasn't on the list. I looked in the vehicle and Robert Downey Jr. was staring at me like I was in shock. I said, "I'm sorry sir, you're not on the list." He pointed to the Iron Man poster and said, "There I am." I asked the driver to pop the trunk, giving a firm command presence and investigating demeanor. He popped it and I asked Robert if they had any hookers or blow in the trunk. He was super nervous and just started laughing. I told him to have a good time. Fast forward to the filming of Iron Man 2, town car pulls up, stacks of IDs, Robert looks at me and says, "Oh crap. Don't pop the trunk." Anthony Bourdain. I have an unpaid very part-time job where I write for a local music and art magazine. I started by writing CD reviews years ago. This spread to writing reviews of concerts and new local restaurants. Occasionally, I would do a phone interview with a musician that was famous, but usually only to me. Ted Leo, Mike Watt, Billy Childish, to name a few. Bourdain was doing a book tour for Medium Raw, his follow-up to Kitchen Confidential. As I was a music and food reviewer, I was given the assignment. Several weeks before the date I called him at his home and chatted about food, punk rock, and what he thought of our own quirky regional cuisine. He was an absolute joy to talk to. When he came to town he referenced our conversation from the stage. It was a surreal and completely unexpected moment, and we will always be a special memory to me. Years later, when news broke that he had taken his own life, the magazine asked me to rework the story and turn it into a tribute and obituary. It was an incredibly sobering and therapeutic assignment, and it really helped me deal with the grief of losing one of my favorite celebrities. Eric Andre. Mostly because I was fumbling around with my phone to take a picture and he was making fun of me, which was pretty cool. Patrick Swayze. Dude was super nice. I used to work at a small airport in Van Nuys, California. Mr. Swayze and his wife owned an older King Air that they flew themselves. My very first day on the job, while I was standing on a ladder fueling his plane, Mr. Swayze was inspecting his plane before a flight. He found a small puddle of fluid, left behind by a previous aircraft on the ground under one of his engines and dipped his middle finger in it, held it up and asked, "Hey, what the heck is this?" He clarified that he was just joking when he saw me internally freaking out. He usually tipped really well whenever I helped with his bags and pulled his truck around, especially when his golden doodle clawed me in the face once, and I remember his wife coming to an older, unused hangar once to pull a litter of kittens out from under a car to take them to the vet. This was all before he got his cancer diagnosis, and I left the job before he died. I do remember being legitimately sad for his wife when I read he had passed. The guy didn't really take too much time to know me, but he was always very friendly, very polite, and made it a point to treat us like people. I met a handful of famous, and not famous, but connected and wealthy people while I worked there. But he was the one I'll always remember. Dude was awesome. The WWE wrestler The Undertaker. He was related to a friend of mine a few houses down the street while I was a kid. This was before he was famous. He was always quiet, even then. But also watchful, attentive, and very gentle. I was only between 5 or 8 at the time, but it was fun to greet him on the porch when he was visiting and stick out your hand to shake hello. He'd do that, then clamp on and slowly lift your whole body in the air by hat hand until you were eye to eye. He'd just look at you while you laughed and wriggled. You could see that he was amused too. He was great. To this day he helped to set the stage for what I liked about men, and would ultimately look for. I saw him when he did a week of shows in Toronto. I was at the Jim Carrey episode. Both him and Carrey stayed after the show ended and signed autographs and talked to audience members who wanted to meet them. I saw him when he did a week of shows in Toronto. I was at the Jim Carrey episode. Both him and Carrey stayed after the show ended, and signed autographs and talked to audience members who wanted to meet them. Carrey left after about 20 or 30 minutes, but Conan stayed until he met every last audience member. He seems like a very appreciative and nice person. That's all for today's video. If you liked the video, make sure to subscribe and let us know in the comments if you have had any crazy run-ins with celebrities. Thanks for watching. Until next time.